Assalamu alaikum, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, assalatu wassalamu ala Rasulul Kareem. Welcome, brothers and sisters, to another Darun show. Let's take it away with the best and only recitation by Sheikh Ahmad Amir.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. من جاء بالحسنة فله عشر أمثالها ومن جاء بالسيئة فلا يجزى إلا مثلها وهم لا يظلمون. قل إنني هداني ربي إلى صراط مستقيم دينا قيما ملة إبراهيم حنيفا وما كان من المشركين. قل إن صلاتي ونسكي ومحياي ومماتي لله رب العالمين لا شريك له وبذلك أمرت وأنا أول المسلمين. قل إن صلاتي ونسكي ومحياي ومماتي لله رب العالمين لا شريك له وبذلك أمرت وأنا أول المسلمين. قل أغير الله أبغي ربا وهو رب كل شيء ولا تكسب كل نفس إلا عليها ولا تزر وازرة وزر أخرى ثم إلى ربكم مرجعكم فينبئكم بما كنتم فيه تختلفون. وهو الذي جعلكم خلائف الأرض ورفع بعضكم فوق بعض درجات ليبلوكم فيما آتاكم إن ربك سريع العقاب وإنه لغفور رحيم. صدق الله العظيم.
Assalamu alaikum, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, assalatu wassalamu ala Rasulul Kareem. Welcome, brothers and sisters. I'm Captain Caveman.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. I'm the die-hard Liverpool fan, champion of the English Premier League, Muhammad Abul Kalam.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is Professor Gray, and I've now become the rock rider on the mountain bike now.
The rock rider. You've now become it. Hey, mashallah, mashallah. Okay, so brothers and sisters, you know what to do. Brother Kalam's going to attempt to tell you how to call us.
Yes, of course. Call us on 0208 1234507. Contact us on the Facebook messaging thing. Let's make this show an amazing show, inshallah.
Well, it has to be an amazing show today because there's some serious things happening. There are some serious things happening around the world, and we're going to make it really serious because I don't know if everyone knows, but there's something happening in Palestine, and I think we need to talk about that today.
Yeah, definitely. We'll be talking about Palestine, and we'll be definitely talking about everything else that you guys want us to talk about. So hit the comments and suggest subjects and everything else. Okay, just before we get started, we just need to clarify the yes/no game. Kalam.
Yeah. Well, it's a bit of a flop, to be absolutely honest. People are too chicken. People are too chicken to play the game. So we had one guy who kind of beat us because there's a delay on the phone. So he's like, got extra time to think of his answer. What's his name? Khalid Rahman. So he's the only winner. We had Muhammad who came in, won, and then left again, like Superman. And he's not contacted us back. So if you want to play, guys and girls, 0208 1234507. See if you can pick one of us, and then we'll try and beat you. You can try and beat us. And the prize is actually quite good. It's a meal for two, so you and a friend of yours, or your husband or wife, with the rest of us, the three of us, inshallah, at a restaurant of your choice, and we'll fork the bill, I guess.
Yeah, that was the idea, but chickens. Khaled's gonna just walk with it. So anyway, when actually it's possible to go to a restaurant and eat with people, and if no one else is called Khaled, you've just won. So we just put that out there.
Well, shouldn't that be quite easy now with the relaxation of the lockdown now, and the pubs are going to open up now? What a tasty thing to go for the pub now. Yeah, the pubs will be open.
Nah.
Nah.
I know you're climbing mountains on a bike now, right? But we're still not going to a pub.
Yeah, all right.
There are some halal pubs, I heard. There was a fab for those young and up and coming Muslims. Halal pubs, are they still open? Yeah. A halal pub, 0% alcohol or 0.5% alcohol, and you go to these pubs and it's like, a bit like you've got like instead of like what do you call it, Barbara Windsor woman from EastEnders behind the pub, you've got Auntie Mahmouda. Salam alaikum, what can I get you? Is it orange juice with ice here, bete? And all of that. And then you got people coming in and sitting and drinking. And there was a time when there was pubs. People must have heard of that. Pubs, Muslim pubs.
Yeah, I think they heard of all of that in your head.
Yeah. I thought, Kalam, the equivalent of that was the shisha places. I thought they were the trendy places for now.
You know what? People are innovative, Abdul Bahid. The shisha trade did not suffer because of lockdown. Edgware Road, there were like loads of cars parked across the whole Edgware Road, and then they would deliver the shisha to the cars. And so the guys in the car doing their shisha. See, this is innovation.
Yeah.
Where there's a will, there's a way, as they say. Okay, so brothers and sisters, yes, of course, we are going to be talking about Palestine. As many of you know, Israel is continually taking more and more Palestinian land, stealing and forcefully actually taking land. It is oftentimes killing Palestinians. One thing I want to kind of say, and Abdul said that there's an important thing happening. It is called an annexation, but they've been annexing since day one, which is nearly 70 years now. Okay, all the big difference is now they're doing a big chunk in one go, rather than doing bit by bit. So that's the difference. And I think, look, you guys know who watch us on a regular basis. Palestine is very close to our hearts, and we need to really raise our voice on this. And it's got to the point where we see how disgusting people are behaving in terms of allowing this oppression to happen, whitewashing it, with using anti-Semitism as a weapon to actually shut down debate, shut down criticism of Israel, which, for all intents and purposes, is committing war crimes, is a Zionist entity, is a racist apartheid state. Okay, there is no denying any of this. But the Labour Party and the Tories, but the Labour Party in particular, with Keir Starmer and others, have decided that you can't criticize Israel, and if you do, we're going to chuck you out of the party. We saw what happened with one of their shadow backbenchers, front benchers, Rebecca Long Bailey. Though I have no sympathy for her because she herself said that criticism of Israel is anti-Semitic. So you can see how these oppressors have tried to set the whole narrative that if you criticize Israel, it is anti-Semitic, and anti-Semitism is bad. So this is a way they're trying to shut down the debate. And as you can see, how they're attacking the Black Lives Matter movement, because they're promoted, or not promoted, they're highlighted what's happening in Palestine, and they're just going after everyone. And it's come to a time where, look, at the end of the day, if we ourselves are not going to be willing to stand with our Palestinian brothers and sisters, there isn't going to be anyone else at the end of the day. A lot of people have their own agendas. They use an opportunity, maybe whatever. But we are the people who say that our priority is the akhirah. If that's the case, we should always be siding with those that have been oppressed to help them get justice.
Well, Netanyahu's party, the right-wing extremist party, obviously a lot of people know Netanyahu's father was a historian as well. So yeah, it's also about legacy play here as well. Yeah, so he wants to basically get his legacy name in and get this done. This is not this hasn't come about suddenly. This has been on the pipeline. And what's interesting is that they've been very smart in the way they've been doing this. And the whole world knows that they're breaching international law. These illegal settlements are actually infringing and taking over people's house property, and sometimes forcefully they're taking these lands. And it's very clever. You just take piece by piece. You blame the victims. The victims can't say anything or criticize you because they're going to label them as extremists and terrorists. This is just like nonsensical. It's just gone beyond proportion, and I can't understand how the world can stand there and kind of like allow what is wrong and not say what is wrong. Yeah, and when people are looking at equalizing the equal sides here, there isn't an equal side here. There's no equality. There's no equal side here. One group of people are being subjugated. Their land has been confiscated for them. They're in limbo in one part, which is the Gaza. They're trapped. They don't have access. They don't have sovereignty. They're not allowed to have their own means of self-defense. So totally, the whole world sees this. But for whatever clever reasons, there's international, legalization of certain words and terms, so that scare people away. So people don't talk about Palestine issue. People don't raise those issues. If you do want to speak about this, then you've got to have some kind of equal say. But there's no equality here. And what is happening now here? All these settlements are going to be annexed as part of Israel. The opposition groups in the Palestinian sectors are rejecting this. This is going to have serious ramification. There's, already we get indication there's some kind of military preparation is taking place for whatever resistance or whatever response the Palestinians may be making. And what we will hear in a couple of weeks' time, basically something's gone wrong, and the Palestinians will be blamed for doing, what they need to do in order to kind of like defend themselves or whatever. Yeah. And now the question is why is rest of us we don't know about this. We're not talking about this. We're not discussing. Have we become scared? Have we become fearful? Or our mouths are zipped because the language will not allow you to actually freely exercise your freedom of expression in saying what it is, what it is, and how it is. Yeah. And everyone's going to have to make their mind up. And there are a lot of intellectuals out there who are actually, look, give it. If you, I don't know if brothers have heard what Boris Johnson said. I mean, what the Germans are saying as well. Everyone is saying this annexation is dangerous. It is not in the interest of the Israeli government to do this because it will kind of like stop. And now I've heard actually Palestinian leaders in various, from even in opposition camps, they are now speaking about the one-state solution now. Yeah, and I know Israel doesn't like that.
Yeah, going to our forum on the comment section. Maybe Zahid is saying salam. Abu Ayyub is saying Professor Gray organized a protest. I think the point is that what's happening right now is a repeat of the strategy that Israel has. So it confiscates land from the Palestinian people, especially strategically important land, agricultural land, rich, land, and then
Golden Heights,
and then it allows for Jewish settlers to settle there, and in time create a Jewish majority in the confiscated lands, and then what it does is by doing that, it disturbs the demography of the Palestinian territories. There's spots of settlements that stop the continuity of Palestine. It's like the wall. What does the wall do? It stops Palestinians from interacting, from communicating, from organizing. And these settlements also, in the north, in the south, in the occupied territories, it disturbs the flow, the movement, the ideas, the economy of the Palestinian people. And eventually, if you look at the map from 1948 up until now of how the demography of Palestine has changed, the occupied territories has changed, and how it's just been, taken over by Jewish settlements and consumed by Israel. This is the plan. It's not by coincidence. This is what they do. They take these lands, they enable people to settle there, and then sooner or later the Palestinians become the minority. They're not allowed to return. They're pushed out to refugee camps. But what the Israeli government fails to understand is that it's creating a further generation of Palestinian people who will be full of anger and rage, and who will be responding in ways that, the only way that they feel they can respond. And I wouldn't
yeah, you're 100% right. Let's just kind of understand this in a different way. Can you imagine the British or the English people in the UK if England was forcefully taken, and the same kind of policies and things were being applied to the English people here, or the British people here, or the Welsh people here? How would they respond? What would they do in order to get back their dignity, their right, and their international right as well? Yeah, what would they do? And the sad thing is this is happening for decades now. Yeah, it's a problem that the West created, and it's a problem that they found a solution.
Well, it's a problem that the UK created. Let's not blame the West. Yeah. It's something the UK created with this nonsense drawing of maps, and one of the things is done in all of its colonial past. But I think, look, just for your information, brothers and sisters, we put a little poll up there. We want to see from our viewers, what is the feeling about Palestine? Can we help Palestinians anymore? That's the question we're asking, yes or no. We will talk about the results that come in. But I think, look, as we know, there's been so many fundamental mistakes that have been made against this whole invasion and oppression by the Zionist state. And one of them is actually the resistance. You asked the question, what would the UK do if someone invaded the UK and took it over? Every citizen here would be picking up arms to push back the invaders, and they would take military action. Okay,
by all means necessary, right? By all means.
I don't like to use that term because it's not necessarily an Islamic etiquette in there, but you would use whatever was allowed to actually free yourself. Okay, and what I mean by allowed is actually physically fighting your oppressor. That's allowed. But what did they do? They made it illegal. Can you believe this? Right? Even this country, okay, it actually bans organization in Palestine, in occupied Palestine, from actually resisting the Israeli occupation. Okay,
Responding militarily, basically.
yeah, and worse than that is they, like you said, Boris Johnson said, "Oh, Israel, if it did this, it won't be good," and all of that kind of stuff. It's just word is meaningless because Israel, if it did it, none of them are going to do anything. Not a single country is going to do anything. Okay, and we know that. We've seen that.
By Nazbai on the thing, he's saying, please give 5 or 6 bullet points where we can be critical of Israel yet not be attacked as anti-Semitic.
Okay, so first thing is, look, if your starting point is I want to help the Palestinians, but I don't want to get in trouble and attack, I would say, you know what it is? Because if you are going to challenge this oppression, then you are going to get into trouble about it. Okay, it's not going to be because you use the wrong word. It's because you're challenging the issue. So, brothers and sisters, I mean, so far in our poll results, alhamdulillah, everyone is saying we can still help the Palestinians. The first thing is, look, brothers and sisters, we are here in the UK. Okay, we are not actually directly being impacted by the actions of the Zionist state. Okay, we are not running out of water. We are not being bombed. We are not, phosphorus gas is not being set upon us. Okay, our children are not being killed. Okay, we are quite free actually to do something. But the first thing we're going to have to be ready to do is make the sacrifice. So I ask our brothers and sisters, if you really want to stand up for Palestine, the first thing you do is in your heart and in your mind, okay, you come to a position where you say, you know what, I'm going to stand with the Palestinians no matter what they throw at me. If you think you can't handle that, then minimize your efforts, because I'll be honest with you, they're going to come after you. There has not been a single person that has been left by the Zionists. You cannot name a single person.
Okay, Brother Azad, so let me ask you a question. Yeah, so let's say more and more people get labeled like anti-Semitic, and you got what, like 1 million Muslims in London, for example, and they're pretty much very much passionate.
Gary, don't make up stats like that. 1 million.
You have got 1 million Muslims in London. You have from the center.
Yeah.
Look, even if you can't. They've been trying it. Okay, and even one thing, look, no matter what the politics we see of the right or the left, there are a lot of decent people in this country who don't put up with nonsense. A lot of people see through this nonsense of weaponizing anti-Semitism. A lot of Jews are actually very upset that something that is quite serious as anti-Semitism is being used as a weapon to shut down criticism of atrocities that Israel is committing.
I think that's the problem. That's the problem. Sometimes we, campaigning for justice and all that. Sometimes our language is sometimes quite it's quite confrontational. So and I get where you're coming from, Azad, and I think I agree with you. But to say, look, if you're not prepared to get gunned down by the Zionist movement and get attacked and all that, don't come up and fight, don't stand up for Palestine. Many people will take your word for it, and they might not campaign for Palestine. I think,
but for me, the way I see it, that's a good thing, because what happens is people who are not willing to actually stand up with principles, with actually a spine, what happens is oftentimes they renege and give ground that makes it worse for the Palestinians. Okay, I'll give you a good example. Let me give you an example. Okay, this definition that is being used as a weapon against criticism of Israel, the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, which nobody actually agrees with. When it was first being discussed, I won't name the council because it'll expose the people I'm talking about. Okay, when it was being discussed in a particular council, right, there was a lot of Muslims in that council, and those Muslims, okay, they were explaining that, you know what, if you allow this definition to come through, what they're going to do is shut down your criticism of Israel, and you're not going to be able to talk about Palestine, you're not going to be able to talk about BDS, all of that kind of stuff is going to get under. Oh yeah, but look, maybe not. And because they never actually had that courage in the first place to withstand the pressure from the Zionists, what did they do? They allowed it to pass. Now that it's passed, okay, that council, all right, a lot of it, those counselors, Muslim counselors, then got what? Newspaper stories, blogs, Twitter, that they're anti-Semitic. Okay, you know what they used as examples as anti-Semitism? Them talking about Palestine, them supporting Palestinians, them exposing Palestinian crimes, them just posting Guardian articles about the atrocities Israel is committed. Okay, these are the things being used. But what happened for the rest of the council? They stopped the BDS activities. Okay, they said it's illegal to actually boycott. They brought all of this stuff. So these people actually, what did they do? They facilitated more for the Zionists than the Palestinians. So I reiterate that I'm not talking about. It's not about using harsh language or anything. I'm talking about you as a person. Okay, you as a person, if you think I can't withstand this, the pressure that's going to come, then sit out, leave it. But if you do stand up,
isn't it? It's believing in the cause and the principles of the matter.
It's not just believing in the cause and principles. It's also being willing to actually stand up for it.
And that,
yeah. If you're not willing, look, Callum, you remember, I'm sure Anabja will remember, 15, 20 years ago, it was Muslims were embarrassed to speak to an MP and say the Palestinians are being killed. Why? Because the Palestinians were being portrayed as terrorists.
Terrorists, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And Muslims, they were shy. Right? This is what happens. Okay, because what happens is your ability to speak the truth to the tyrant goes. Okay, if you don't have that courage, and that's why that courage is really, really important. So this is the first thing I would say. It's not about. I don't obviously advocate people use foul language or all of that kind of stuff. I'm saying that internally yourself, you are going to be willing to stand with the Palestinians. It might cost you your job.
Okay, so if you
get a promotion, you might get an article written against you.
Yeah. So as so you don't agree with the definition that's been given, for that board that gave the definition, yeah, the current definition of Zionism. What definition would you agree with of anti-Semitism?
Well, it's already there. It's in law. The one that's in law already is there. It's fine. There was never a need. What you got to ask yourself is, why have the Zionists pushed this? Is because there was a time that the Zionists were getting bad publicity. A lot of people were turning against them. So how can they stop this? First of all, they're using their media contacts, right? People like the Rupert Murdoch industry and others to actually promote Israel and actually shut down the debate, right? But the second thing is they brought in this definition to tongue-tie and hand-tie all Palestinian activists and everything else. I mean, look, let's just take, for example, Jeremy Corbyn as an example. The guy's not Muslim, all right? He's a socialist, he's a lefty. Some might say he's an extreme left or whatever, right? But the guy was a mainstream person, a leader of a political party. What did they do to him? What did they do to him? Okay, can you see what they did to him?
Only because of his pro-Palestinian position.
Yeah.
No.
This is the amount.
I think they did it because he was a communist.
Communist.
That's what they thought. He's a communist.
Look at people like Margaret Hodge and what's her name from Enfield, the MP, something like that. If you look at Al Jazeera's documentary that exposed, they had from the Israeli embassy someone actually working on taking down British politicians. Now, if that was being done by the Russians, this country would be up in arms. If that was being done by the Chinese, this country would be up in arms. If that was done by, Saudi Arabia, this country would be up in arms. But what did it do? It didn't do a single thing.
No, and you're not making it up either. This is actual facts, documented, and Al Jazeera got an award for the for the documentary, you know, the investigative documentary, but it was swept under the carpet. And this is the thing, like the distinction between Zionism and Judaism needs to be, this is one of the, this is the, you know, to answer your question, one of the things where we can do is actually maintain that distinction between political Zionism and Jewish Jewish people and the Judaic faith, because there's a difference. Not everybody who's a Zionist is a Jew. You see, there are Christian Zionists, there are, you know,
definitely we should not listen. It is not a Jewish thing. Okay, it is nothing to do with Judaism. It is wholly a Zionist project, and that's why the Zionists want to conflate it with Jews, and that's why they want to say, "Oh, if you're anti-Zionist, you're actually anti-Semitic." This is what they want to do. So look, first thing, let's have the courage. Second thing is, let's actually understand what is going on the ground and everything else. Look, Abdul said something really important, which is 2-state or 1-state. Even the Palestinians are now looking for a 1-state. Okay, from Alhamdulillah, they've come to this conclusion. Alhamdulillah, a 2-state solution was never viable. Okay, it was only viable in probably 1967. Okay, where, after the war and everything, or maybe if it all happened there and then, it would have been maybe viable.
Even then,
it's not. Yeah, so a 1-state solution is the only solution. Prior to this Zionist atrocity that took place at the Nakba, okay, almost 70 something, I think 71 or 72 years ago, right? In that region, Muslims, Christians, and Jews always lived together. Okay, and that shouldn't change. There shouldn't be a change. So I'm not advocating it should be just become all a Muslim land or anything else. I'm saying the people that live there, they should all live there, and it should be a single state. Okay, I mean, obviously I have issues with nation states and everything else, but that's going into another conversation. So courage. The second thing is understand on the ground what's going on and what can you do. The third thing, brothers and sisters, that we can do here is actually focus on BDS. Just like South Africa that operated apartheid, okay? It was defeated because of the boycott, divestment, and sanctions program. Okay, but it took a long time to build up momentum. You some of you might be as old as myself. Anyway, you remember people like Mike Gatting, Ian Botham. They went and played in South Africa, breaking the boycott. Okay, and sometimes there were some stories written, but sometimes there was positive stories written about them and everything else. So it's going to take time. But it is something that we can do, and it's something that we should be pushing in our local authorities. Okay, if, for example, look, it's not about Palestine isn't the only issue. There's lots of other issues, and we can't just use Palestine to actually govern locally. No, it's not about that. It's about actually having decent people. It's about having councillors that actually have decency and humanity and some fiber of justice. So we're not saying just make Palestine an issue. We can make Kashmir an issue if you want as well, right? But what we're saying is you should not be supporting, and you need to give moral support to injustices that is taking place. So the council should ensure, at bare minimum, they're not supporting the Zionist state through any Israeli, like, for example, Viola. Right? Yeah. Viola is known to be connected with the Zionist state, and people should be boycotting. The council should be boycotting that. Okay, they tried to actually, in law, try to stop the boycott BDS movement, and alhamdulillah, they failed. Yeah, they failed, and it's gone through. So that is the third thing we can do. And the fourth thing I would say, brothers and sisters, we can do, and we don't do enough, is actually make dua. Okay, we don't actually make. I know it comes at the tip of the tongue during Ramadan and all of that kind of stuff, but the rest of the time we're not. And I'm saying that, if I decided, okay, you know what, I'm going to actually campaign and stand up for the Palestinians, I would be making dua all the time. Why? Because I would ask Allah to protect me while I'm trying to do this. Okay, just even for my own selfish reasons, if I'm doing that, then I'll remember the Palestinian people as well.
Brother, can I just?
Sorry, Abdul, but the fifth thing, I agree completely, and all of the three things that Azazbai mentioned in terms of the first three you mentioned, those are what the Zionists are actually attacking. The boycott movement, they're attacking it to delegitimize it. They're attacking the knowledge base. How did this all start? Who were the people who were oppressed? Who were the owners of the land? Who owns the land still now? That kind of historical information, they're trying to rewrite history. And obviously the first one, which is the courage and the principles that is needed, they're trying to make those principle stance extreme, terrorist stance, fundamentalist stances. So they're trying to take you away from actually aligning yourself to those. So these are the attacks. They know exactly what the weak points are, and they're attacking them. The fifth thing I would say, alongside the dua, is we should be supporting Palestinian causes, Palestinian civil causes, Palestinian humanitarian causes in Palestine, through the charities, through the agencies, sponsor an orphan, give light to Masjid al-Aqsa, give water to the people of Gaza, provide livelihood programs and agricultural programs and food programs, and support their fisheries, support their infrastructure. By doing that, you're relieving their burden of having to fight for their daily bread, so that they can continue their struggle. Because at the end of the day, we from outside can do a lot, but the people that are going to make the change, the people that are going to stand up and articulate and argue and intellectually and physically and spiritually defeat their enemies, are the Palestinian people. So we need to try and relieve the burden for them as much as we possibly can by doing all of these 5 things. That's what I would say.
Okay, shall we do some messages there?
Yeah, let's do some messages. Okay, so we've done that. Zishan Siddiqui saying Manchester City 4, Liverpool 0, humiliation for the champions, and then he's
let's not change the subject. Let's ignore that. Yeah, Kala.
No, yeah, we'll ignore it. And then Nasima is saying, when I have been smeared as anti-Semitic, I always put forward the question, what would they call the rabbis? Would they call them, or the anti-Zionist Jews, would they call them anti-Semitic?
No, they call them, there's a special name for them, self-haters.
Self-haters, yeah. Timothy James is saying, we need to do a BLM type movement, Black Lives Matter type movement around the world for Palestine. Zubayd is asking, what's the documentary, the Al Jazeera documentary? Jenny Fisher Isete is saying, Gatting, both of them. How about Tony Gregg? And she's saying, I agree, Zionism is not the same as Judaism. I also favor a one-state solution, and what the Israeli state does is indefensible. But there are many Jews who support the existence of Israel because they fear attack. Don't you need to do more to show Jews that we are against anti-Semitism?
Yeah, look, listen, it is, but I don't accept the frame there at all. We don't need to do more to show the Jews that we're anti-Semitic, because we were never Semitic and anti-Semitic in the first place. And the Palestinians were never anti-Semitic in the first place. We've got to get this right. As soon as you entertain things like what Jenny said there right at the end, that don't we need to do more to show the Jews that we're not anti-Semitic, that we're going to fail, because we've fallen into the trap that the Zionists have set. Okay, it is not, we don't need to show any of that. Okay, let the facts speak for themselves. Okay, we know the Jewish community have their own securities community trust, CST, where they actually collate how many attacks they have against the community and freeholders, and it's around 200, 300 a year. It's nothing compared to over 1,000 to 2,000 in the Muslim community, and it's nothing probably compared to the number of racism. Okay, it's not about that. There are things that are happening there that is being dealt with, but we will not be conflating that with what's happening in Palestine. There is no chance of that.
But there's a TV channel, Memory TV. Do you remember MEMRI?
Yeah, it's run by basically Mossad.
Yeah, but sometimes what they sort of show is like what the Palestinian children, what the Palestinian families in Gaza, in West Bank are viewing. they're viewing cartoons, they're viewing documentaries that are demonizing Jews, that are demonizing Israelis, that are making them the enemy. So that narrative, if that's being pushed daily.
First of all, if anyone actually uses memory TV for a reference for anything, needs to go and actually lock themselves in a fridge. Okay, just like Boris, because you're actually using a Mossad tool, a Mossad broadcasting tool. Okay, how silly do you need to be? It's just like people who read the Daily Mail. I don't have the time for these type of people, because you're deliberately being stupid. But look, in our work here, there are going to be a lot of Jews, okay, who will understand the oppression that is taking place. And when I answered that thing with Jenny, I didn't mean that we don't work with the Jewish community and everything else. Mashallah, there are many Jews out there that are actually also fighting what's taking place in Israel. And actually in Israel itself, there are Jews who are standing up to what Israel is trying to do. Yeah. So we're not blind to all of that. But what I'm saying is, as a community, as a focus, just like how this IHRA anti-Semitism thing that killed basically the Labour Party, we should not fall into the trap of that. This is all I'm saying. Okay.
Olir is asking, we should give, or saying rather, we should give charity to our poor relatives because it's more reward.
Well, yes and no. Okay. In terms of when you give, okay, yes, you should try to give to those that are closest to you. Okay. Now that's physically as well as in terms of blood, okay. But also the greater reward is those that have more need. Okay. Yeah. It's just quite logical. So I don't think there's a competition in at the moment. Yemen is very important. Syria is still going to be very important. Rohingyas, what's happening with them is there are many things. And please, if anyone has any issues, please, if you can't give any money and you think there's too many causes, then just please don't give and just keep yourself quiet. Okay, we don't need to hear you. Alhamdulillah, by all grace of Allah, this Muslim community is very generous. Okay, very generous. Even in COVID-19 Ramadan, this Muslim community broke records. Okay, in giving money. Okay, they didn't have no job, they were scared for their lives, but they will always give money because Muslims are.
Let's help to clarify this here. I mean, obviously there is a sense, and some people do espouse the idea that you should give to your own relatives, and this is a discussion that I've been pushing forward in the community as well. Now there is a misunderstanding. So some of our elderly people feel that, look, there's not enough money going to Bangladesh because there's a lot of things happening. There's a lot of poverty happening in Bangladesh. So they're trying to encourage the new generation to, give, because they see a lot of the British-born Bangladeshis, giving a lot of money to Syria, Gaza, Lebanon. A lot of the wealth is going over there. Yeah. So they're trying to do that. They may be sincere in that. Okay. Now,
that's the other side. No, sorry, I'm going to challenge you there. That's nonsense.
No, don't challenge me, because I'm just giving you a reference of how some people are feeling, and I'll give you the counter.
Some people are just doing politics. Sorry, Abdul.
Yeah, but can I finish?
I wrote down this 2 years ago, and I've seen the development.
Can I finish here? So that's what some people are thinking, and there may be political angles to that. But most people are generally just, they're just thinking, oh, what's the best way to do it? So the way I look at myself, yes, I've got relatives back home who may need, financial assistance. So what we should be doing, you got to remember, we're part of the Ummah of the Prophet ﷺ. Yes, give to the closer people, but also give to other people as well. So what I do is I portion it out. So if I want to give, I give 30% to, let's say, to my area in Bangladesh, where my parents come from, and then I will try and do another big chunk of the portion, so it goes to people around the world who need it the most. So what we need to do.
And sometimes, like if you look at what the people in our back home need it for. And we know we know the reality is. I get the point is, even it's a Quranic.
But what we don't want to do is we don't want to divert from our topic here. I think it's
no. We've diverted now. I'm going to bring the topic back after we play the most Harun Rashid for the topic. Oh. But Joe, you've actually diverted us. So let's actually finish the subject, because let Kalam speak actually, because I think he's going to say what I want to say.
Well, no, all I was going to say is that, yeah, the Quran says to give to the nearest of kin and all of that, but it's definitely based on need, isn't it, Abdubai? Sometimes they're sitting on like, or,
Abdul Kalam, I'm not agreeing with you. I'm not agreeing. I'm just helping. Like Ollie's made that, you know, and I know Ollie's campaigning on some charity activities, and that there's others are doing that. Then what we need to do, we need to help people to understand why the need is greater and how to evaluate that hierarchy of need. At the moment, a lot of people may not have that understanding. Where you and I, we've got that because we've got that kind of humanitarian framework, and we're using that framework.
Okay, listen, Abdul, your point was the younger generation are not giving as much to Bangladesh as the older generation did. That's quite natural. Yeah, perception, but that's quite natural. Why? Because the younger generation do not have the connection to Bangladesh like the older generation did. So the first failing is on yourself. Okay, if you did not actually create those links with your children to people back home and everything else, then why on earth are they going to give money back home? Okay, just for sentimental values. That's one thing. Second thing is the need in some places in Bangladesh, the need is really, really great. But I'll be honest with you, bro. People in Bangladesh, when they ask for money, it's not because they're going to starve. It's not because it's because they want to buy some clothes. They want to get some Eid clothes. They want to put a new roof up. They want to build an extension. Okay. Yeah. And many of those people in Bangladesh, right, instead of actually working, they're relying on foreign income. Okay, foreign donations that's coming in. So I think, look, we need to, if you want to have a conversation, Ollie, feel free to give us a call. If you want to bring this subject up, I'm quite happy to discuss it. But I am not play the game. I'm not going to
not tonight. Ollie, cool, bro.
Yeah, where we create nationalism, okay? Like, just because I'm Bengali doesn't mean I give money to Bangladesh. Nationalism is haram in our deen, okay? Khalas. We, as Muslims, we will give where the need is the greatest, okay? Where the need is the greatest. And from time to time, the area will change, okay? Now, should we actually go back to our subject?
Yeah, I just said having love for your nation isn't haram. It's this extreme nationalism. It's this asabiya, the Arabic word asabiya. This unadulterated love, whether it's right or wrong for the nation, just because you were born in.
No, naturally, you will have inclination towards your own kind of people, your own tribe, if you like, or your
kinship,
your kinship, and things like that. Naturally, that would be there. That's obvious. No one is denying that. That's from the fitrah of Allah. But that's not my point. My point.
I mean, there's an easy solution.
Should be given to Bangladesh.
Yeah. That's perception, and and like you said, most people will make that judgment. They will decide where to give it. And at the moment, when it comes to looking at the hierarchy of need, people who are being oppressed, bombed, people who are poor and being bombed, poor and being tortured, at the hierarchy of need, obviously, that's why in Ramadan you'll see most people give to those places. If you've got a charity organization that's got programs in those countries, they'll get good percentage coming. And also people give to Bangladesh. It's not like people are not giving to Bangladesh. We've actually given quite a lot. Our parents have actually given so much to Bangladesh, and they continue to have done so. And that burden isn't as much on us now. However, how can we neglect for one for the other? How can we say we just want to give to Bangladesh and also the Ummah of the Prophet ﷺ is leading on the other side as well? So it's about helping people to understand, getting that balance. I always say to people, look, give 30-40% to Bangladesh, give 60% to people who need it in the Ummah in the best way you can, and even more, 10-20% in the UK for the people who need it here, because there's also certain needs in the UK as well. Yeah, so it's about how people.
Hot topic you've started there, Abdubai. So Zubaydah is saying, my dad has been giving to Bangladesh before I was born and still continuing to do so. So I'm choosing to give elsewhere. Bangladeshis can't really have a problem with that, can they? And JJ is saying this attitude actually is quite prevalent. I've had some people say that zakat is not valid because it wasn't given to relatives in, for example, Bangladesh.
There you go. Look at that. I mean, anyway, listen, Jenny actually, Fisher has actually responded saying, do the Jews worry about anti-Semitism from Palestine, or do they trample on Palestine because of anti-Semitism in Europe? Well, if they actually trampled on Palestine because of anti-Semitism in Europe, isn't that wrong? Like, why aren't they trampling on Europe if that's where the anti-Semitism is? And this is my point, okay? Like, we've got to understand that, you know, trying to go down this route of anti-Semitism and everything else, it is a rabbit's hole. It is the trap that has been laid by the Zionists, okay? Don't even fall for it. Don't even go there. Right, okay. Brothers and sisters, we need to actually play the most Darun Nasheed, and we're going to actually let this Nasheed play all the way to the end, around 4 or 5 minutes.
Listen, let me read Zishan Siddiqui's comment, because it's been full of Bangladeshi comments so far this show, and we're not nationalists because it's haram. Okay, I'm from Pakistan, he says, and most of my charity I give elsewhere, but I will still send something to Pakistani relatives, maybe 10%.
Yeah, we all do. We all do. I'm always giving to my relatives, and you should. But that's, like I said right at the beginning, you know, if we're not developing that culture into our children, then you can't blame our children for not giving. All right, let's take a short nasheed break. It is an important nasheed. Hopefully, it will get you going, and after the nasheed, we'll carry on. See you in a minute.
الأرض والشطآن والبحر الأرض والشطآن والبحر في غزة الشماء تستعير والشعب يمضي للمنى قدما والشعب يمضي للمنى قدما والحور في الجنات تنتظر الأرض والشطآن والبحر في غزة الشماء تستعير والشعب يمضي للمنى قدما والحور في الجنات تنتظر والحور في الجنات تنتظر الأرض والشطآن والبحر في غزة الشماء تستعير والشعب يمضي للمنى قدما والحور في الجنات تنتظر والحور في الجنات تنتظر والطفل يرسي في العلا مجدا ومجدهم يهوي ويندثر والطفل يرسي في العلا مجدا ومجدهم يهوي ويندثر لا تعجبوا فالطفل معجزة لا تعجبوا أطفالنا كبروا لا تعجبوا أطفالنا كبروا الأرض والشطآن والبحر في غزة الشماء تستعير والشعب يمضي للمنى قدما والحور في الجنات تنتظر والحور في الجنات تنتظر والقدس صاحت من مادنها هلا عدت الفتح يا عمر والقدس صاحت من مادنها هلا عدت الفتح يا عمر والمسجد الأقصى وحرمته قدسها السفاك والقدر قدسها السفاك والقدر الأرض والشطآن والبحر في غزة الشماء تستعير والشعب يمضي للمنى قدما والحور في الجنات تنتظر والحور في الجنات تنتظر كنتم بنفح الله علما لما ابتعدتم داسكم كفر كنتم بنفح الله علما لما ابتعدتم داسكم كفر عودوا إلى الماضي وعزته عودوا ففي أحشائه عبروا عودوا ففي أحشائه عبروا الأرض والشطآن والبحر في غزة الشمال تستعروا والشعب يمضي للمنى قدما والحور في الجنات تنتظر والحور في الجنات تنتظر ثوروا وروا الأرض أنوارا نحن الدجى وأنتم القمر ثوروا وروا الأرض أنوارا نحن الدجى وأنتم القمر أنتم صفاء النفس فانتفضوا لا يثنكم عن دربكم كدر لا يثنكم عن دربكم كدر الأرض والشطآن والبحر في غزة الشمال تستعر والشعب يمضي للمنى قدما والحور في الجنات تنتظر والحور في الجنات تنتظر.
Welcome back, brothers and sisters. Hopefully you enjoyed that nasheed. It is the most Darun nasheeds of all nasheeds. Okay, no nasheed can ever beat that nasheed. So we were talking about Palestine and everything else. So there is actually this weekend an important event taking place. Many of you will know Friends of Al-Aqsa. They've organized it before, Pal Expo. I think it wasn't last year or maybe a year before. On your screen, you should see it. So it's happening this weekend. So tomorrow from 1 p.m. to 5:15 p.m. And on Sunday is from 11 a.m. to 5:15 a.m. And on Sunday, actually, Jeremy Corbyn, the former Labour Party leader, at 2 o'clock will be speaking. The details are, if you just go to PalestineExpo.com, all the details will be there, or Friends of Al-Aqsa. Please pass that word along. If you know, one of the things you can do is actually tune in and see all the different things that's happening and hear from a lot of seasoned Palestinian activists and hear what they have to say in terms of what can we do for Palestine. Okay, Jazakallah khair for that. Okay, so let's actually move the discussion on a little bit. Just before we do, I think there's a couple of comments that's come in. Maybe Abdul, you want to, not Abdul, Kalam, you want to read?
Yeah, if I could. My phone's frozen on me.
All right. Do you want me to read it?
Yes, please. Oh,
Okay.
no, I can't see any of the new comments. Go on.
Okay, so Matt Kadir is saying basically, I'm not against anyone donating zakat to UK recipients. After all, it is still rewardable. But definition of poverty in the UK is quite different to the poverty in developing countries, i.e. extreme poverty in many cases. Pakistan, Bangladesh, there is virtually little or no welfare state support for the poor, unlike in the UK, where despite terrible conditions that some endure, they will still have certain level of cover provided to them. Yeah, fair enough. And I think, look, we're all agreed where the need is more, that's where we should be given. But at the same time, I'm actually a great believer in investing in where we are as well. If we do not look after ourselves, just like the emergency kind of process when in a plane, when the oxygen mask comes on, the first thing you do is you put it on yourself, okay, and then anyone else. Why? Because if I'm not able to survive, then I can't help anyone else. So we have to invest in ourselves here in the UK as well. So whilst I agree with you, I think there needs to be elements of whether it's zakat or sadaqah that is invested in this country. Right. So I wouldn't say some. It's definitely more than some. I don't know what Zubayd is referring to. Okay. Zubayd, I don't know what you're referring to, so you need to tell us what you're referring to. But anyway, should we move the discussion on a little bit? Abdul, you have a story you want us to cover, is it?
I forgot now which story it was. Went so deep.
Oh my God! How can you forget?
So deep. So deep. Okay, now I don't know what your take is on this. Yeah, a couple of days ago. I mean, even now the big. We're going to get more people coming to the UK. You know what's happening in Hong Kong? the democratic right, the voice of the people have been suppressed, so forth. And the UK government is considering allowing at least 40% of the Hong Kong residents to,
show
come.
what's on the screen. What story are you?
I'm referring to the escape to the UK citizenship for can you see 3 million people?
Yeah.
3 million people. Obviously,
the point of Brexit was
escape green story though.
no, but the whole point of Brexit was try and reduce migration into this country.
well, no. Before you come to the migration, do you see some irony here? Yeah, because obviously, Hong Kong was a British colony, okay, and then obviously the British, done the deal with China, came out, and the Chinese government were not supposed to, take away the democratic rights and freedom and that. And obviously the people in Hong Kong are fighting for that. And, we've seen a lot of protests taking place. And now China's basically, they don't really care. Basically, they're doing what they have to do. And obviously the Hong Kong people are feeling they're being victimized. Now the British government...
Most people, 3 million people, are British citizens, aren't they?
Yeah. No, some are going to be making application. They're going to be making application. There's going to be stages of them being accepted in the UK. I'm just wondering, can some of the Palestinians not make some applications in the UK as well?
No, we don't want Palestinians to leave Palestine.
Okay, don't you? Okay.
No, what are you talking about? Oh my God!
We don't know Palestinians.
Listen, we don't want Palestinians to leave Palestine.
So you're going to have Hong Kong people coming over here, and also now some of the Hong Kong people. Listen. Yeah, listen. Now the Hong Kong people, if they declare an independent state, they are going to be branded as terrorists. Already the law. No. You have to look into this. This is very, this. What the similarities are now popping up here. Now UK is going to be facing some diplomatic, they're going for a diplomatic round now at the moment. Yeah, the question is, can they see what happened in the past that's going to happen to them now?
What?
Sorry, some people are saying Professor Gray has lost the plot.
You lost the plot, Abdul. You've lost.
Encouraging Palestinians to leave Palestine. Come on, what you like?
Well,
you need to make Toba, bro.
Well, look, the Palestinians.
Palestine Palestinians.
I know, but you did say it was the British who kind of got the Palestinians in the mess in the first place, isn't it?
Yeah, that doesn't mean Palestine, don't do they?
Yeah, I know the most Palestinians don't want to come over here anyway, yeah, right? But
there's people slapping their foreheads with emojis. There's people saying infiltrator. There's people saying you've lost the plot. You need to make the Toba now, bro.
Repeat after me. Astaghfirullah.
No, give it another week.
It's not that one. It's not that one. Toba.
Okay, give it another 2 more weeks and you will understand.
Okay, so Jenny Fisher is saying they are not, for the most part, British citizens in Hong Kong. Okay, they are entitled to apply for a special category of overseas citizens who have no right to reside in UK. What is being proposed is adding the right to come to the UK for 5 years.
All right. Okay. Listen, I mean, I'm for all migration and everything else. I don't believe in hard borders. I think, Brexit was the most dumbest thing that's happened, and we're yet to feel the consequences of that. But let's see how that happens and what goes on. Any other stories you want to bring up, Abdul?
Well, I think we've covered most of the stories. Yeah, we've covered.
Story. Khabib UFC boxer's father passed away. Rahmatullah alayhi. May Allah grant him Jannah. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. So Timothy James is saying Khabib's father passed away today. Fathers play a big role in children's lives, and you can see how big of a role he played in Khabib's life and the dawah they gave everyone just by Khabib's actions towards his father and treating his father with utmost respect at all times. May Allah give him Jannah. I mean,
yeah. No, that's Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Yes, that's actually quite sad to hear. I think he was fighting COVID and he was battling for a few months. And he was quite young. I think he was like around, what, 57, 59?
Under 60, yeah, under 60.
Yeah, so Allah make it easy for them all. No, definitely. I think actually, since you brought this issue up about Khabib and influencers and everything else, so what one of the stories that's gone round is about a comedian who put a message out there that he's misbehaved towards women in the past and etc., which his first message kind of was a little bit confused because he said there was abuse and things like that. So people thought, well, what happened there? And then he put another message out and everything else. So I want to kind of not talk about that issue in particular. But
What is it? I've missed that completely. Who was it?
What's his name? Tez Ilyas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, from with Guz Khan. What's that?
Yeah.
I think, or whatever it's called. Anyway, but I think, look, there is actually a really important conversation here, which is about, how men, and since it's all men here on the show, let's talk about men and not necessarily women. But, if anyone wants to pitch in the conversation, you can call us or message. But, there is a conversation to be had in terms of, do men, and it's not actually a question. What should be done about men who abuse their power, who abuse their authority, who are influential, and they take advantage of people?
Oh. What should be done?
Yeah. How can we stop this? Like,
we should advise them, not expose them.
Let me give you some of the things that is happening, because if it's not being dealt with, what's happening is a lot of sisters are feeling, okay, these men, because it's true, like, when we actually spoke about it when that hijabi girl, whatever her name was, that took off her hijab and anyway, whatever her name was, right? So when women do certain things, men are talking about it and everything else. But when men do something, how comes brothers aren't calling it out and everything else? So I think, look, it's something that's happening in our society. It's an important discussion. Now, I've been speaking to some people about this in different places, and for me, I think it's how you look at the issue. I don't want to look at the issue of a particular act, which is maybe abuse or men behaving inappropriately to women and everything else. I want to look at the bigger picture, or the steps before that, in terms of our environments. Okay, what kind of environments and what are the things that we're normalizing that leads to something like that, that creates the environment where something like that happens? Okay, so just like, many of us, we are quite old. When we grew up younger, we weren't no angels. We used to do a lot of different things, but we used to hide and do it. We used to be careful that no one elder saw us, no senior person saw us. Why? Because they can clip us around the ear, because our parents have given them permission, and also they'll go and tell our parents, right? Now that kind of stuff is gone now, where now Muslims openly they would do whatever they like in front of whoever they like, and there is no haya, there is no shyness or anything else, and there, it was almost like there's no consequences. So if as a community we've normalized a lot of the things that are happening that happen in the Western society, like, for example, drinking and free mixing and all of that kind of stuff, then is it like shocking then that these things that happen? And is it then just that we need to do is call out the end result, or is it more important that we actually deal with things that lead to it?
No, I think look, I think the male's attitude, young kids, young boys. We're talking about boys because but the attitude is built by how they're nurtured, the tarbiyah that they receive at a young age. And I think, unfortunately, amongst many Muslim families, there's an absence of the father in the rearing of the sons. Whether it's because of work, whether it's because of too much engagement in dawah, whatever it is, business, whatever it is, there are absent parents, absent dads in the communities. And so when a dad shows respect to the wife or to women, when a dad leads the way in how a child, a son, a boy, a man, you should behave in front of elders, in front of women, in front of younger people, then the son, he is able to relate to that. He's able to set that as a role model and as an example, and he learns that from a male point of view, from a patriarchal point of view. And that absence means the void is filled up by people, street culture, friends, internet, online, and un-Islamic, really, essentially. And so they're developing with this very, very poorly framed attitude, and that doesn't help with respect to women, with respect to parents, sisters, and so on and so forth. So I think like you blamed us for like our children not giving to our country of origin, I think we should blame ourselves, the parents, the fathers who are absent, for children growing up, for sons especially growing up not knowing how to treat women. And
what about people who are there, fathers who are there, but maybe are teaching them wrong?
Wrong, exactly. Yeah.
Are we generalizing, or is it a specific issue, a problem?
No, I think we're talking in the general. And
okay,
look, the problem isn't a Muslim community problem. This is a mainstream problem. But as Muslims, we need to actually focus on it, because that's like issues.
A little bit more context. Are we talking about like male who, the way they treat, like let's say, do they treat samely their own relatives, their own female folks in their houses, or are we talking about when they treat other ladies or women that they don't know?
I think it's people within their homes as well as outside as well. I think that
we don't know what goes on in people's houses, right? But if people are behaving like, look, let me give an example, maybe that will help. For example, so one of the attitudes that we have is that when sisters raise issues, whether it's to do with domestic violence, whether it's to do with prayer space in mosque, whether it's to do with
that's on a platform though, isn't it?
No. Hold on. Let me finish. When they raise these issues, they often get called feminist, right? They often get called feminist. Now, the people that you often call them feminists usually are men, and reason they say that is because they see women behaving in a way they're not comfortable.
It's
right?
challenging, and that's to shut them up.
It's almost like they feel they're challenged, right? And wait, you're a woman, you shouldn't be talking like that, and everything else. Now, this is what is causing the problem. So what Kalam's talking about being brought up and everything else, are we bringing up our daughters in a particular way, and are we bringing up our sons in a particular way? Now, I'm not here bringing in Islam gives roles to both men and women, right? Are we explaining those roles from an Islamic perspective, or are we explaining those roles from a cultural perspective?
Yeah, good question. Some of our people are saying this is far from being a Muslim or Deshi issue, which is how it's inaccurately being characterized. And another comment is, for situations where dads are present and they are teaching their sons bad, it's a duty on people around those dads to speak up, I believe. Yeah, a fair point. I think
it is. I think, look, this is a really important topic, because as a community, we've got many challenges. We have a lot of external people that actually manipulate members of our community and create, havoc and divisions. Whether they use government programs like Prevent and things like that, and start labeling people, oh, they're extremists, they're this, they're that, or whether it's actually people, brothers in particular, labeling Muslim women feminists just because they're raising a particular issue, and they're feeling uncomfortable. We do need to actually talk about this and at least understand that, look, you know what, there is actually a problem here. Okay, if we can all actually agree first. I'm not, look, I don't know anyone's personal situation, so I don't want to talk about anything personal about anyone, any individual. I want to talk about general behavior. How do we, what can we do? What can we do now today, right, that can help bring that change where actually both members of our community, the male and the female members of our community, are actually afforded the dignity, the ethics that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given. How do we do?
First and foremost, I think as parents, as males, we need to take that responsibility to become righteous, to try and become pious parents, pious uncles, pious grandparents, whatever our status is. Because in the Quran, you know, in Surah Kahf, I believe, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the two orphans, and I believe it's in Surah Kahf, but Allah talks about the two orphans and the wall, and why Dhul Karnayn rebuilt the wall, because beneath the wall was the treasure of or the property of the orphans. And in that surah, Allah says one of the reasons that Dhul Karnayn did this is because they're orphans, it belongs to them, and their father was pious. So if the father is pious, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect their parents, their children, their offspring, will try and protect them and protect their wealth and protect their livelihood. That's number one. And if you look at the Quranic narrative, like you know, all of the prophets and how Ibrahim alayhi salam was with his children, and how the other prophets, you know, Yaqub was with Yusuf, and all of that. The father figure of a household has responsibility to become the imam. وَجَعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. Oh Allah, make me for the muttaqin and imam. So the parent, the father, makes that dua, that he is the leader, he is the exemplar of piety and of faith and of righteous behavior, of justice. So if we're not there, if we're absent from that, then that's the first and foremost failing. I think that's what we need to try and do first and foremost, that we need to try and inculcate within our own selves, if we're parents or if we're going to become fathers, to be pious, to be righteous, to know our deen, to educate ourselves in terms of divine justice and so on and so forth, so that we can pass it on to our children. Because if you look at it, science tells you that kids, they look up to parents, kids do what parents do, they follow your example, you know, that. So that's the starting point, I think. And after that, I think we need to educate our children, our sons in particular, about the rights that women have, about the respect that women deserve, about the fact that we are actually guardians and protectors of our women folk. Not meaning not to inhibit them, restrict them, and impose our will upon them, but to give them that space and that freedom.
Well, you know, on that point about being guardians and everything else, I think Musa is also actually written a message which actually bring this to the fore, and I wanted to mention it. And she says, basically, the thing I've noticed is there's always an excuse for a man's behavior, yet when women do something, it's somehow like she has no excuses, down to society giving man superiority. And I think this is a key. So, you know, like you said, like, you know, men are guardians and protectors of women and everything else. Well, at the moment, many of our sisters are feeling men are guardians and protectors of other men, right?
Exactly.
And what they do is, like, you know, as soon as a man does something, they try to find 70 excuse, if not 100 excuse, and they'll always find an excuse. But when a sister does something, right, it's all gone. Oh, right, yeah, it's like the floodgates open. But
You
there
know,
is no
I was
excuse.
being flippant when you asked that question right at the beginning. I was being flippant and saying, like, you know, keep it private, don't expose him, because that's the default position. If a brother does it, it's like the gentleman's club. Cover the brother, saying, you know, seek excuses for him. But if a sister, you know, wears the wrong color shoes, bruv, it's trending on Instagram or Facebook. Men are on Facebook, innit? Women are on Instagram. But the point is, our sisters, you know, there's a judgmental attitude. We may have personal positions about whatever, lots of different things. But I think our default position, we're very critical outward looking, whereas we're very, very relaxed inward looking, and that's the schizophrenic mentality.
Okay, so let me pose a question. Where do you think these attitudes come from? Are you saying that this attitude is actually nurtured at the home, or
no. It is not just nurtured at home; it's also nurtured in society, and we see that, right? We see. I know parenting. I know parents who would.
But can we generally
hold on? If their son did something, okay, they will treat it in a particular way. If their daughter did the same thing, they would be much harsher. Okay. Now, some of that comes from, okay, you know what it is? If a woman does something, the negativity is the stigma and everything else is far worse. Okay. So there is this thing. And so they actually use that as a cover to actually be harsher on the woman than on the man. And I think, look, this is something that we should actually, this is something we all of us can do. And I include myself on this, and all of us, we're guilty of this. Maybe one of the things we can do is stop actually talking about what women get up to and what men get up to. Okay, this is it's not about, this is not the time for us to expose each other. It is a time for us to understand how we work with each other with all of the faults that we have. Right? Because if we cannot create that environment where the sisters, they feel safe as the brothers, there is that saying, oh, it's like, it's the men's club in there, they all back each other, all of that kind of stuff.
They say boys will be boys.
Boys will be boys. All of these kind of stereotypes, it's a lot of the times they're not just stereotypes, they're actually reality for a lot of the sisters. So we've got to understand that. And I'm not saying, just trying to say like the sisters are all innocent and they don't have, issues and everything else. They do, but that's not the point. I'm trying to say at the moment there is a huge imbalance, and the imbalance is and the balance is actually in the favor of the men at the moment, where they tend to get away with things. And I think, look, we do need to address this, and the sooner we address this, the better it will be. And I'm trying to think, okay, what is the best way to deal with this? Because look, every time you go into a particular issue, all you do is you deal with that issue, but you don't deal with the greater causes of that issue. Like, I'll give you another example. There's a good hikmah in our deen, right? So like, for example, hijab. As soon as you think of the hijab, it's like, oh yeah, women, they need to cover their hair, and if niqab and whatever and everything else, and men whatever, right? No one actually talks about men and their hijab and their lowering the gaze and all of that kind of stuff, right? It's always the expectation, all the work, all the effort, all the expectation is put on the woman, right? And the men, they can get away with whatever they want. That's just like one example, but there are also other examples that we can cite. So I'm like thinking, when we organize events and everything else, when we actually, like, I'll give you a good example. Why would a Muslim charity, invite someone to do fundraising who has or works in an environment that is un-Islamic? Okay, so say a comedian who works in an environment that is un-Islamic, that uses language and things that are problematic. What we do is we normalize that person. It's that celebrity culture. Sometimes we also are to blame from it. So when we organize events and things like that, we have to do it with the etiquette and the ethos of Islam, okay, which is that brothers and sisters, they don't sit together; they sit separately. I'm not saying you have to have a partition in the middle or not. I'm not going there. I'm saying there are basic etiquettes. There are basic kind of Islamic mannerisms, right? We need to be making sure that is always paramount. Okay, that's one thing. Second thing is, on social media, okay, if people, like, one thing I always see is sisters like always saying, oh, someone's sent this bloke has sent this bloke has sent that, and everything else, like constantly. men are badgering women. Okay, and sometimes, you know, brothers, as soon as this comes up, brothers will say, oh yeah, but look at the sisters, how they're behaving, they're taking pictures without hijab, they're pouting, they're doing this, they're doing that, you know, they're asking, asking for it. That's really, like, again, putting it all on the sisters again, and deflecting it off, like, okay, so what if the women are doing all of that stuff? Where is your control? Where is your lowering the gaze? Why are you even friends with that person? Why would you even be on their whatever page, or, you know, wherever you saw the picture? So it's like, I want us to, as brothers, actually take the responsibility, okay, because the duty falls upon us first and foremost, that we have to do two things. I think the first thing we have to do, including what Kalam said about, you know, parenting and everything else, the first thing we have to do is recognize, actually, we operate a double standard, that we as brothers, okay, have a different expectation from our sisters than our brothers. Okay, we are more than willing to actually make excuses for brothers when they trip over than we are for our sisters. Is recognize that. Second thing is that once we've recognized that, is we need to actually stop spreading this fitna. Okay, we need to stop spreading the fitna of, oh, did you see this sister? She was doing that. Did you see this brother was doing that? We need to stop that, and we need to find ways of actually changing attitudes. And education is the best way, I think. And one of the things may be the shuyukh, those people who do dawah, those people who are doing talks and everything else. Maybe they can take this subject up and actually bring the Islamic positions on this.
And I think it's not just the imams. I think youth workers, community leaders, people in authority should do that. I mean, I do that to all my students anyway. I try and teach them those values, and I'm sure more and more people need to do that. Yeah, and I think you have hit the point. If we don't have a holistic approach in this, I personally generally think, you know, a lot of it people are developing this value and culture as they go along. There must be something out there that's kind of like generating that. I personally think, and I've seen a lot of people in various different family backgrounds, and that in generally a lot of our youngsters are very respectful to the females. They're very courteous. They might be doing a lot of no good out on the streets and that, but when they come back to home, there are some attitude. Definitely, we have to challenge those attitudes. We need to challenge them soon as it comes to our attention. And I think
that there is a problem where, like, at home they're very good with their women folk, but when they're at school or when they're at work.
Yes, that's why I was asking that question before. Where is it happening?
So that, I think, look, you know what Azadbai said about it, and you know, in the Quran, Allah says, Al-mu'minuna wal-mu'minati ba'duhum awliya ba'd, that the believing men and the believing women, they are protecting guardians and friends one onto the other. So it's not about the men
of each other.
It's a mutual love and respect, divine love and respect for all believers, men and women, for all men and women, right? We're supposed to be protecting and safeguarding each other and giving each other that love and respect. And I think, and that will only come if you yourself have that attitude of piety, or strive for piety, for individual personal piety. If you don't try to become pious yourself, there's no way you're going to expect piety from other people. If you don't try to become God-centered, there's no way that you're going to be pushing out things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala likes and wants. And I think that is really fundamentally where it needs to start. It needs to start with taking personal responsibility and ownership for our own self. So when you do that, what happens? You judge yourself first. And when you do that, what happens? You judge yourself harsh, and you judge others a little bit more, less harshly, because you're going to be more strict on yourself than outside of people. When you don't do that, then what happens is you get this schizophrenic attitude where you are judgmental to the people outside, whether it's women or men, but you're very, very relaxed and loose about yourself. You're okay at home, you're an angel at home, but you're a devil when you step outside the door. This duplicity comes down to the fact that internally there's a hypocrisy, and that internal hypocrisy is that we're not living by our standards. And I think that is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ, that you do not die except that you're a believer, that you've submitted. So the lifelong struggle should be to attain and to strive to be submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you do that, then your individual unit, your family unit, and your societal unit can become more virtuous and more correct and more proper. Right.
Definitely. All right. So on that note, let's actually play another Darun Nasheed, I think, brothers and sisters, and we're gonna play it all the way to the end before anyone complains, so you know what Nasheed is coming. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back, brothers and sisters. Okay, so I think we've had a very Darun show. We've talked about lots of different things. And we didn't get any calls, but that's fine. Gives us more time to speak. So Kalam, I think let's do one last read of the messages, and then inshallah round up.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that would be a good idea if I had the messages up on.
Oh my God, you're failures.
Give me a second, brother. I'm, you know, talk about parenting and all that stuff.
Well, can I before I've got 2 points to make here. Just as I'm like strolling through my newspaper as well. Yeah, want to give a big thanks to Brother Abdul El Gaya, a good Samaritan. He's a railway worker, and guess what he did? Yeah, he actually saw a bike being stolen as he left work, and obviously he challenged that, and he waited until he returned the bike to the owner, which is a very brave thing to do. You know, I don't know how many people would take that risk and who would do that. A lot of people see a lot of these bikes being stolen, and people just give a blind eye to it. So yeah, that's something really, really good, positive to someone who's like will go out his way to do something. And I hope that he's safe and he didn't confront the guy or anything like that, because sometimes.
No, so basically, Abdullah, what happened was he waited. He basically said, "Look, stop." He retrieved the bike, and then he waited for 4 hours.
Yes, that's right.
To come back and collect it. And the person, the bike owner's comment was, "We need more Abduls in the world."
Okay.
And this is the thing: this is positive dawah, isn't it? Simply by living.
You just need to learn how to get our names right as well. Yeah. So that phrase, "We need more Abdul Rahman or Abdullah in the world," would be better. Yeah.
And,
anyway.
And another good news, yeah, just to let everyone know, today was the first janazah prayer, second janazah prayer and first burial that I attended today. Unfortunately, you know, I wasn't allowed to go near the grave where the body was being. My auntie passed away, and like usual, loads of my relatives turned up for the burial, and the requirement's only 10. So unfortunately, you know, a lot of us just said, okay, no, let the immediate family members go. The government is going to relax the rule now. So in a couple of days' time, basically, more people will be able to go now. That's going to be relaxed from 10 now. So that's quite good news. But you still got to maintain your social distancing. There was a bit of a discussion at the cemetery why more people can't come in, and we did try and explain. Look, you know, we don't want our cemeteries to close down for breaking the law. If the laws are broken, then basically, you know, we won't be able to do the funerals and bury the people. Yeah, so it's good that the relaxation is taking place. I think more people are going to be happy.
And we haven't spoken about the fact that mosques are likely to open up this weekend, from this weekend, the 5th. Was it? I don't know. This
13.
But some mosques.
No, 13th is East London Mosque, but from tomorrow they can open up.
Yeah, from tomorrow. But some mosques are, and I think this is good. Wise heads are dictating here that some mosques are still holding back because, guys, mate, let's just quickly. There's a second wave coming. The number of infections is increasing. I'm still don't laugh, Azad, but it's true, mate.
I'm not. I'm laughing because we're such lemmings. Do you get it? It's just like, you know, we just can't wait to get ill.
Yeah. So the R rates is close to 1. London is a hotbed of coronavirus, COVID. Be careful. Just be careful, people. Don't fall for the economic argument. Maintain the scientific.
You can only have 30 people. Legally, you can only have 30 people to go and pray together at any one time. So can you imagine, like Azur time? We discussed this, didn't it?
Yeah, we have.
I'm just saying. So look, I totally agree with what Kalam is saying. We really need to be careful and not let our guard down. You know, it's been 4 months. It's been hard. We've been not going to the masjid and everything else. It's been difficult, right? But it will ease slowly, and we just need to do this slowly. Everyone has different risks. Make your risk assessments, and then inshallah, you know, look, take it easy. Right, let's round up, guys. Let's round up. It's been a good show. I think. Anyone want to say anything last before we say salams to our listeners?
Yeah, alhamdulillah, it's been a good show. I think once again we spoke about the ummah We spoke about Palestine, we spoke about justice, and we spoke about oppression and how we should be at the forefront of, you know, fighting oppression. And I think rightly so, we discussed that any time you take a principled stance, the enemies of truth and justice will sooner or later attack you. And this has been you know, written in the books of history, in the Quran, the narrative of fighting against injustice and how you get personally attacked, your character, your history, your integrity, that your livelihood, all of that will come under threat. So we need to be you know, when we do stand for justice and truth, we need to be aware of that, and we need to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep us you know, steadfast. It's called istiqamah. Having istiqamah is one of the traits of true believers. We need to ask Allah to give us istiqamah, which is to be steadfast when the trials and the difficulties you know, hit us. So we spoke internationally, and we spoke a little bit more closer to home, being responsible parents, responsible fathers, being good you know, parents to our children, the boys in our community and our ummah. And I think this is what it is. This is the balance that, you know, if you can fix yourself, that's the beginning of fixing the ummah. If you can address the faults and the weaknesses and the deficiencies within your own character, your own self, and start addressing them and dealing with them, and if we do that individually and collectively, then you'll see that the critical masses are achieved to gain successes in terms of our ummah and the problems that the ummah faces. So that's where it needs to start. It needs to start with ourselves. We need to look after our souls. We need to look after our iman. We need to preserve it and build upon it. And slowly we'll see the change around us as well, inshallah.
Abdul?
Okay, yeah, we've got loads of activities happening online. You should take part. You just saw some of the adverts before, especially with Friends of Al-Aqsa, who are organizing the Expo Palestine. Take the opportunity this weekend to kind of like share those information, because the more you share those information around, more and more people on social media will get some of the facts, they'll get some of the arguments, some of the debates. I was watching Al Jazeera, and there's some fantastic documentaries on there as well. You know, take an opportunity this weekend to really upload yourself with the information and facts in regards to the conflict and the suffering of the Palestinian people. Do not forget, you can continuously support the Palestinian causes through humanitarian means as well. And in that particular way, you're also highlighting their suffering, and it reminds other people. And one thing that people are not doing as much as they should do is continuously read, you know, materials on the history, context, and the political analysis that are taking place as well. So if you can do that, then you're going to empower yourself. Once you're empowered yourself, you can actually hold your ground, you know, make the arguments and understand the facts very well as well. And sharing the information, don't be shy to share, you know, information around so that other people get to see that message as well. So Expo Palestine is taking place over the weekend. If people would like to become friends of Al-Aqsa as well, the project, you know, they're looking for volunteers. They're looking to set up in different areas as well. Get involved with them, help them, volunteer with them. There are other Palestinian causes out there, organizations out there that you can get involved with. Yeah, inshallah. And also bear in mind that, you know, with all kinds of discussions, there's going to be critiques, and you're going to have to take those critiques as well. I know some people shy away from it, but you know, people like myself who've actually been into Palestine, we've been in West Bank, we've been in Gaza, we've actually seen what's on the ground, and it's not true that most of the Muslim community are what I call it, anti-Semitic. They just don't like the injustice that's happening in Palestine, not just in Palestine, but we hold on to our principles. Wherever injustice are taking place, we speak against that as well. So it's very unfair for a certain section of a community to say that those activists are anti-Zionist in any form, anti-Semitic in any form and shape. So once again, you know, people be active. Some people are asking for, you know, protests and demos. You know, go to them. You know, do what you can. Even if you're going to bring change or no change, at least you're doing something about it. Yeah. More importantly, very importantly, just social media, share it. You know, and that's the best way you're going to get the message across.
Sorry, before you go, Azad Bhai, one of our viewers asked for the title of the documentary by Al Jazeera. It's called The Lobby. And it's Al Jazeera investigation exposes how the Israeli lobby influences British politics and policy making. So it's called The Lobby. If you Google search it, you will be able to watch it. It's a series of documentaries, well worth the watch, inshallah.
Definitely watch it, and you'll see exposed what the Zionists are doing here. I think Jazakumullah khair everything. Naz is just clarified something which I kind of generalized. It's 30 people for a wedding, but for congregation it depends on floor space. So a place like East London Mosque obviously can accommodate more than 30 people with social distancing and everything else. So brothers and sisters, if you are going to go to the masjid, be careful. Make sure that you follow the rules and kind of advice that the mosque and its volunteers gives you. Take your own prayer mat, do your wudu at home, using hand sanitizers, wearing a face mask at all times when you're in the masjid and everything else. So it is, as long as you're sensible, it shouldn't be a problem. I think on the Palestine issue, this weekend is happening. Look, we just cannot give up. Okay, one state solution is the way forward. Boycott, divestment, and sanctions is our focus. Okay, brothers and sisters, find out how you can get involved. There's a whole BDS movement there. If you're politically active, then in your local area, then make that a key point. And just speak truth to power. Just be courageous and speak truth. Okay, just stand with the Palestinians, with principles, with a spine, and inshallah that will be a lot, and of course make dua. And the other thing we discuss in terms of how brothers and sisters are interacting in our community and everything else, we do really need to actually look at this. It's not fair that we kind of make excuses for men when they mess up, but we go all kind of guns blazing when it's a sister that messes up. Okay, it is unacceptable, and we need to actually find ways to deal with it. And one of the things we can do is recognize that we're doing that and stop doing that. Okay, inshallah, and then move forward from that. Right, hope you enjoyed the show, brothers and sisters, and we will see you next Friday. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.